Hello, in this video I'm going to try to clear up some confusion around the language of supply and demand. So let's first start. A shift of the curve, either the demand or supply curve, is not the same thing as a movement along a curve. So these things are not equivalent in terms of language. An increase in demand is not the same thing as an increase in the quantity demanded. One refers to a shift of the curve, over here on the left. The other refers to a movement along a curve, over here on the right. Likewise, a decrease in demand is not the same thing as a decrease in the quantity demanded. A decrease in demand is a shift of the demand curve, where a decrease in the quantity demanded reflects a movement along the curve. And as for supply, the same thing. An increase in supply is not the same thing as an increase in the quantity supplied. An increase in supply means the supply curve is shifting. An increase in the quantity supplied means we're moving along a supply curve. And the same thing here with a decrease in supply. A decrease in supply is not equivalent to a decrease in the quantity supplied. These two phrases mean two entirely different things. A decrease in supply means the supply curve shifts. Decrease in the quantity supplied means we move along a given supply curve. All right, let's do some examples. All right, so let's take a look here at the figure on the right. So the figure shows a demand curve shifting right. This is an increase in demand. This is not an increase in the quantity demanded. So this is an increase in demand. We're going to use that language to refer to the entire demand curve shifting to the right, here from D1 to D2. The increase in demand caused the market price to rise. It went from $5 to $6. A rise in the market price caused the quantity supply to increase. So we moved up along the supply curve, as illustrated for moving from point A to point B. The movement from point A to point B illustrates the law of supply. As the price of a good rises, the quantity supplied increases. In this example, there is no increase in supply. An increase in supply means the entire supply curve shifted. In this case, the supply curve did not shift. We had an increase in demand, and we just moved along this stationary supply curve. So there's only an increase in the quantity supplied happening in this diagram. So this increase in demand, it causes the equilibrium price to rise and equilibrium quantity to rise. Factors that could cause an increase in demand include the following: an increase in income if we're dealing with a normal good, a decrease in income if we're dealing with an inferior good, an increase in the price of a substitute good, a decrease in the price of a complement good, an increase in population, an increase in consumer taste towards the good, and finally an increase in the expected future price. All of these factors over here would cause a demand curve to shift to the right, cause an increase in demand, leading to a higher equilibrium price and a higher equilibrium quantity. All right, let's take a look at this diagram here. This figure shows a demand curve shifting to the left. This is a decrease in demand. This is a decrease in demand. The demand curve shifted from D1 to D2. The decrease in demand caused the market price to fall. It went from $6 to $5 per unit. The fall in the market price caused the quantity supplied to decrease. So in this diagram, there is no decrease in supply. The supply curve did not shift. We just moved down and along the supply curve, and the language we're going to use for that is the quantity supplied decreased. So the movement from point A to point B illustrates the law of supply. As the price of a good falls, the quantity supplied decreases. There is no decrease in supply, once again, because the supply curve did not shift left. So this decrease in demand causes the equilibrium price to fall and equilibrium quantity to fall. Price went from $6 to $5, and the equilibrium quantity went from 6 to 4. Factors that could cause a decrease in demand: decrease in income, dealing with a normal good, an increase in income if we're dealing with an inferior good, decrease in the price of a substitute good, increase in the price of a complement good, decrease in the population, decrease in consumer taste towards the good, and a decrease in the expected future price would lead to this diagram over here on the right. Okay, let's look at this diagram over here. Here we have an increase in supply. So the figure shows the supply curve shifting right. This is an increase in supply, the supply curve shifting from S1 to S2. The increase in supply caused the market price to fall. You see the equilibrium price went from $5 to $3, so the market price fell. A fall in the market price caused the quantity demanded to increase. So in this diagram, demand did not increase. We had an increase in the quantity demanded, as illustrated from moving from point A to point B along this demand curve. So the movement from point A to point B illustrates the law of demand. As the price of a good falls, the quantity demanded increases. So once again, there is no increase in demand. We saw earlier what an increase in demand looks like. It's the entire demand curve shifting to the right. That didn't happen in this diagram. So this increase in supply causes equilibrium price to fall and equilibrium quantity to increase. Factors that could cause this increase in supply include a decrease in input prices, technological advancement in the production of the good, an increase in the number of firms, and a decrease in expected future prices. Now let's take a look at this diagram. The figure shows the supply curve shifting left. This is referred to as a decrease in supply, the supply curve shifting from S1 to S2. The decrease in supply caused the market price to rise. Equilibrium price went from $5 to $6 per unit. A rise in the market price caused the quantity demanded to decrease, as illustrated from moving from point A to point B along this demand curve. The movement from point A to point B illustrates the law of demand. As the price of a good rises, the quantity demanded decreases. There is no decrease in demand in this diagram. There's a decrease in the quantity demanded, but not a decrease in demand. The demand curve did not shift to the left. A decrease in supply causes the equilibrium price to rise and equilibrium quantity to decrease. Factors that could cause this supply curve shifting to the left include an increase in input prices, becomes more expensive to produce this item, decrease in the number of firms, so some firms exit or leave the market, or an increase in expected future prices. Okay, that's it. I'll stop here.